what we can see is that it impacts all aspects of our performance. So wherever I am, my psychological fitness is present. It has an impact. It's impacting our well-being, so how we feel, and also our resilience, our ability to be able to deal with what comes our way. So it's been described as the largest remaining competitive advantage in business and in life. And we've all got the ability to improve it. And it starts, as Kay said, with upgrading our understanding. So when we build our psychological fitness, we find ourselves here more of the time. We find ourselves in this place. We might know it as flow, or we might know it as being in the zone, but we've got more access to these capabilities and more. A study by McKinsey, who looked at the performance of senior executives over a 10-year journey, found that they were 500% more effective when they were in this place, when they had this greater sense of psychological fitness. So I could work on a Monday, take the rest of the week off and get as much done. So clearly we'd all want some of that. Maybe we could even work Tuesday, and my goodness, what might happen? So it's really clear that psychological fitness is really a global tool to being able to access these capabilities. So rather than having to build each and every one on their own, we can access them all, their innate capabilities, by building our psychological fitness. So let's pop back in and look at one of the aspects of 2020. As Kay said, there are many. It's been a big year, but let's have a look at one of them. So, Corona Coaster. This is a new word or a new concept that was introduced this year to really describe the highs, the lows, the ups and downs of this pandemic that we've all experienced in one way or another. So the person that created this concept described it as one day you're loving your bubble, going for long walks, baking cakes and pottering in the garden. So that's obviously our highs. But then the next, you're crying, you're eating ice cream from a tub and missing people you don't even like. So clearly the lows. So very different experiences, and we can feel the kind of roller coaster element of it. And I'm sure we can all relate at different points through this year. So what I'd like us to do, just to kind of get ourselves into what this year has been like for us, is to use annotate mode. So I don't know if you know how to do that, but all we need to do on Zoom is go to view, options, and then select annotate. And what I'm going to ask you to do is, as you think about your experience of the Corona Coaster this year, above the word Corona Coaster, just pop in one or two words to describe those positive emotions that you've experienced on the Corona Coaster. And then below the line, some of those more negative emotions that you might have experienced on this Corona Coaster this year. So if you can just have a little go, think about this experience and start popping up some words so we can see what your experience has been like. Yeah, quietness, that sounds good. Yeah, family time, you know, togetherness. Yeah, optimism. Yeah, so really beautiful feel when we're in that top of the roller coaster. Calm, balance, optimism, focus. So we can hear we're getting lots done. We're able to help others. At the bottom though, we've got things like loneliness. So the opposite, uncertainty, homeschooling. You only need to write that word. I totally understand. Uncertainty, isolation, stretched, tiredness, yeah, tension. Yeah, you can just see the wealth of different experiences that we've had. You know, it's not static. It's been up, it's been down. And what we can see from this is that although undeniably there's been lots of challenges that we've had physically, real challenges on the outside, whether that be financial, whether that be our jobs, whether that be around our health, our experience of coronavirus has changed moment to moment at times, even when nothing has objectively changed on the outside. So let's try and understand why. You know, we know that coronavirus has changed, but we're still seeing these changes within ourselves when nothing's changed. So Kay, if you could clear that for me, thank you. We'll have a look at this. So there is this variable called state of mind. Our state of mind goes up and down, just like a lift. We can see here we've got an elevator, called the mood elevator. So we can be up in the penthouse or we can be down in the basement, but really it's dependent on how burdened our mind is, how much mental activity we've got going on. So when we are down in the basement, if we imagine this is our desk in the basement, this is what it looks like. This is the experience that we can all relate to, that we've had when we're down in the basement at times. And probably during this corona coaster, we may have experienced some of this. But ultimately, everything seems urgent, seems problematic. We are unable to feel that we're being efficient. We're being pulled in different directions and we feel very unfocused. We can become quite rigid, quite attached to things, and we can take things quite personally. We can lack creativity, lack a sense of resilience, lack an ability to connect with other people. And as a result, we feel stressed, we feel overwhelmed, and we might get to that place that many of people have talked about this year of exhaustion, of burnout. So that's what it's like down in the basement. And, this year, some research by the ILM has found that over 75% of respondents said that leadership to some extent was lacking during the COVID-19 period that they've been through so far. They've cited things like challenges around clarity, challenges around feeling empowered, a lack of empathy and a lack of connection. So we can see that this is real and this is happening. But then we can move to this more beautiful place, the penthouse. We all want to be in the penthouse, this place where our mind has got nothing on it, where it's a lot less burdened. And our experience is really different. We feel energy, we feel confidence, we feel a sense of motivation and momentum. We see opportunities and we feel empowered to capitalize on them. Really feel a sense of creativity, ability to cope with the challenges life throws at us, and really be able to feel a sense of collaboration with other people. So really different feel and a really different performance that we get in these two different locations in our mood elevator. So what we can see is our state of mind is like a variable lens right in front of our eyes, through which we look at the world, and as a result, it impacts everything we see and it impacts everything that we feel. So if I'm wearing my low state of mind down in the basement lens, very different world I'm looking at than when I'm wearing my high in the penthouse lens in front of me. So it shows why our experience of something like coronavirus shifts, even though it hasn't actually changed. Coronavirus itself hasn't changed. So what we can see is it looks like our mind is a camera. It looks like it's taking a picture of the world out there, creating an experience in here. But what we actually start to see is our mind is more like a projector, that we're projecting our state of mind, or we're projecting our thinking onto the world out there. And that's what's creating our experience. So we're not experiencing coronavirus per se, we're experiencing our thinking about coronavirus. And the same is said for a project, a deadline, our workload, our colleague, our team, our organization, our job, and the list goes on. So if we think about this in a really kind of visual way, I think that there's no better example than this one. Two people on an actual roller coaster. So this isn't a corona coaster, this is an actual roller coaster. And what we can see, same circumstances, same view, same environment, same physical inputs, but who thinks that their experience is the same? It looks really different. The lady on the left, the poor thing, versus the lady on the right. So what we can see is their experience isn't coming from the roller coaster, it's coming from their thinking about the roller coaster. So we can see that our state of mind is the precursor to all behavior and all outcomes. So it makes sense to go upstream to our state of mind if we want to make change downstream in our behavior or in our outcomes. We spend a lot more time downstream trying to make change there, but actually the rewards are when we go upstream, and that's when we access that global tool and that peak performance. So one tiny bit for us just to consider in terms of one way in which our state of mind varies. So the brain has got this filing cabinet, and it's where we store things like concepts, memories, where we store patterns, and much, much more. And we use this filing cabinet when we're interpreting neutral data that comes from the outside via our five senses, and we make meaning of it. So that's how our filing cabinet has a key role to play. It's a powerful evolutionary survival mechanism to help us. So it helps us when we are, if we think about, seeing a lion, or when we might see fire, so that we have the ability to interpret it quickly and be able to know what to do. But it's really critical that we understand the interpretation mechanism is using neutral data from our senses to create projections of a future that hasn't happened yet. And it's doing it so seamlessly, so effortlessly, that we don't know it's there. And we take it as real, but it's only ever an interpretation. So if I give you an example of this, a recent client of mine, she told me about an experience she had during lockdown. She was a CEO of a significant organization overseas. And she got an email that told her that her organization was going to merge with another one, and that there would be a meeting about it in 2 weeks' time. So those 2 weeks for her was based on her interpreter saying, I'm going to be made redundant. No sleep, lots of erratic eating. She found herself unfocused, unable to perform within her role. She was exhausted. She even went to the extent that she booked a meeting with her lawyer to understand the technicalities of her contract and what her rights were when she received this news. But interestingly, she went to the meeting. So 2 weeks later, through this 2-week period, she was told that her role was expanding and that she was getting a promotion. Now, she wasn't a victim of circumstances. She was a victim of her interpreter, of her thinking. And so interesting. I'm sure that we can all relate to that. Maybe we haven't had that exact experience, but maybe we've had other experiences this year. We've seen news about coronavirus, or we've seen, someone said something to us, or our own behavior, and we've interpreted it in a certain way to create a projection or a meaning of what the future looks like. So, as Shakespeare says, nothing is good or bad, only thinking makes it so. So let's see this in action. So like for this poor little girl, I do feel for her every time I watch it, but she is interpreting the shadow as a threat. So she's kicking into her fight or flight survival mechanism, evolutionary designed, but we know the circumstances are not the issue. They're not a real threat, but we probably all did that when we were kids, so we can relate, but it's her interpretation of what it means. So she's only a 2-year-old, we can feel for her, we can maybe have a little giggle, but we all have our own shadows. We all have our own areas where we've been interpreting, from the really small to the much bigger, whether that be a client, whether that be our emails, whether that be another department. It's happening all the time. So there's reality, and then there's our thinking about our reality, which creates our experience. We've seen lots of fear this year, but it's not coming from out there, it's coming from our thinking about out there. So the more we build our understanding, the more that we improve our psychological fitness and our awareness, the more that we're in reality. And then we can access our full capabilities to deal with what's in front of us, rather than our narrative about what we think is there. So now that we've got an idea of what psychological fitness is, we are going to jump in and look at one more aspect of 2020 with these new eyes. So it has been a year of interesting polarization. We've had Biden and Trump. We have had deal and no deal. We've had lockdown is helpful or lockdown harms. We've had masks are good or masks are bad. We've had vaccination should be compulsory, vaccination should be optional. We've had it all. For the UK people, he should have or he shouldn't have. For those who don't know this one, it was a government advisor breaking lockdown rules allegedly to test his eyesight. We've also had should they go, should they not go? And then we've had a rise in lots of different movements like Extinction Rebellion, Black Lives Matter. So we can all find our own versions of these, this sense of polarization. There's been an increase in fear as a consequence, them and us. We can really see how that's kind of played out for us. Here's a fun little example of what this might look like.
No. Hey, wiggling. No, it's wiggling. No, it's raining. My mom told me it's wiggling. It was raining. No. Yes, it is. My mom told me it was wiggling, not raining. No, my mom said it was raining. No, my mom means it's wiggling. Because my mom said it's raining. No, my mom said it's raining. My mom said it's raining. Ow! My mommy said it's say sorry to the wiggling. My mom told me it's wiggling. My mom it's not. It's wiggling outside, Macy. Mommy said raining. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, you're pretty. You're not real. I'm real. Watch. We're gonna go out there and see. I'm not gonna see you. Watch is not gonna see. Watch. We're gonna go out there and watch. It was just raining. Because it's raining. No, it's not. It's just rain. It's just raining. Ow! It's just raining. Little it's raining. You broke my heart.
So cute. Feel really sorry for the little boy, but we can imagine this in our politicians. We can imagine this maybe even in our offices. We can imagine this kind of in our communities. What we can see is that when we overlook separate realities, when we overlook the fact that we all experience the situation differently, it can result in conflict. It can result in this challenging behavior. And we feel like we're getting nowhere. It feels like really hard work. So let's see what's really going on. So how it seems to work. It seems that the world outside, this objective world, is creating the same experience for everyone. So if that's the case, this webinar, a meeting, something that I'm observing should create the same experience in each and every one of us. But when it doesn't, I might feel angry. I might feel frustrated. I might feel resentful. I might blame you. I might feel hurt. And they're real barriers to communication. They prevent us from collaborating. They prevent us from being creative. They prevent us from moving forward. They keep us stuck and going round and round in those cycles of behavior. As soon as we see something as fixed and unchanging, our resilience decreases and our potential decreases. However, how does it actually work? Experience is created for each person through thought in the moment. We've all got these separate realities. So everybody on this masterclass will be having a different experience of this masterclass, no matter who we are. There are as many different experiences as there are people on here. So when we see that, we become more compassionate. It makes more sense to explain what we're thinking, and it makes more sense to be curious about what other people are thinking. So we ask questions, we get interested. We become less combative, more open. And that's the place where collaboration happens. That's the place of multi-perspectivism, where we're able to keep multiple tabs on our laptop open without it crashing. So we're able to be creative in the moment and work together to create solutions and walk away with the shared understanding. So this is what organizations, aim for more of the time. But what we find ourselves doing, and we've seen this year, quite a lot of the time we can find ourselves in that bottom right-hand quadrant or corner. So we've been on this kind of quick journey through parts of this year. And what we can see, there's been a lot of change this year, probably more this year than most. But when we build our psychological fitness and we shift our understanding, we get closer to reality as it is, and not our narrative or thinking about. So this takes the weight off of our mind, enables us to perform better, enables us to feel better, and we find ourselves less of the time on this roller coaster or corona coaster as we've seen it this year. For those of us who do find ourselves in that place more of the time, we've seen some great success stories. One example of a client of mine who's a higher education and further education college, they had a 5-year plan to digitize their learning. 5 years, but they managed to do it in 2 weeks. This has maintained their income streams. It's also extended their income streams. They now have clients all around the world, and they're able to offer education to people who never thought they would be able to access it. So hugely rewarding for everybody involved. What we can see is if you want to fly, if you want to be in that place of peak performance and flow more of the time, what we need to do is to have an understanding of our psychological fitness, to have a commitment to build our psychological fitness, to change the lens through which we see the world. And from that place, what could be possible for us in the year ahead? So that's our really quick tour through elements of this year. I know we're coming close to time, but Kay, I don't know if you wanted to open it up for any questions or comments at this point before we finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Michelle. It's a really great, if a little quick canter through the world of psychological fitness. We're delighted to answer a few questions. We've got just a few minutes left at the end. Simone had asked a question, Michelle, do you think this works the same for women and men? Which I said the process is the same for everyone, but the interpretation is individual. Whilst I just give people a minute to just write in any questions, I just wanted to share a little bit of the feedback that we recently received from a program that we've been running with Santander, because I think it's really useful to hear it in people's own words, you know, how this links with business and what it means. So this was from something I received last week. So this has been one of the best courses I've ever been on in terms of how powerful and far-reaching the tools that you come away with are. The course helps you understand and navigate your thoughts, which in turn frees up your capacity to deal with new challenges with objectivity, creativity, and resilience. It's an invaluable investment of development time, which will ensure you are better placed to deal with fast-paced change and all the uncertainty that we're faced with in our daily lives. So let's get on to a few questions. Jean, thank you so much. So Michelle, the question is, what are practical ways to surface the different stories going on in a situation?
That's a great question. So we spend a lot of our time focusing on the world out there. What this is about is turning our gaze inwards. So we look at processes of self-inquiry, and we give people tools to be able to do that so that they can start to identify, you know, what these narratives are that come up. They're in our subconscious most of the time. So absolutely, you know, going there, really being able to bring them to the surface, to make them conscious, is the only way that we can then move through, be free of them, and be able to move beyond the limitation that they created in the first place. So tools look like a range of different tools, from questioning techniques to a whole host of self-inquiry approaches.
Yeah, and I would add to that, Michelle, and just say that the first thing is you have to recognize that it happens. And so in the training, that's the huge part of the initial part, because until you kind of recognize and understand and accept that happens, it's almost impossible to use the tools. So yeah, that's something that we take people on a journey as we go through. Michelle, we've got another question. I think we've probably got time for one more question from Caroline Turner. It makes absolute sense that how we view the world shapes our experience. Worldviews are quite entrenched though, agreed. How do you suggest that folks shift the lens to view the world differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think that speaks really beautifully. I mean, we see that so much these days, don't we? Hence this polarization that we're seeing. You know, we're brought up from a young age, you know, with individuals who have got these views, these beliefs that they've created over time. So again, it's really coming back to this understanding that it's happening, because otherwise we take it as this is just how life is. This is all there is. There's no other way of seeing it. So we start to help people understand that's what's going on, that there's this interpreter at play, that we've got this programming or this filing cabinet. And then we help people to understand how that's playing out for them, how that's playing out in how they see themselves and how they see the world. And that's where freedom lies.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I'll just close by saying that a lot of you will know my colleague Fleur Scott, who's one of our other directors at Propel, and we were actually talking about 2020. And for me, I said personally, I enjoy 2020 better than 2019, but that's for things that happened for me last year. So again, we're never going to have the same experience of the world. You know, it's completely individual, but the more we can get the understanding and the acceptance, it opens us up to connection, collaboration, innovation, and so many other things that help us be our best selves. Thank you so much. We're going to end there. I will be sharing the recording. If you have other questions, feel free to contact me directly. Really happy to talk more about this topic. And lastly, if you celebrate Christmas, we've got people from all over the world on today, but if you celebrate, then have a lovely Christmas. And if you don't, you know, have a nice rest as well. And we look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.